I was the daughter who set the table but never got a seat. That's how I describe it now, looking back. Growing up, I understood my role pretty early. I cooked, I cleaned, I watched my little brother get driven to soccer practice while I took the bus to school. I got straight A's and heard "that's nice" at dinner. My brother got a C in algebra and got taken out for ice cream to cheer him up. I stopped expecting anything around the time I was 12. By the time I was 17, I had turned that expectation into fuel. My name is Hazel. I'm 31 now. And this is the story of how my father, the man who couldn't be bothered to show up to my college graduation, texted me 18 months ago, the week my company was featured on the cover of Inc. magazine. The text read, "Hey, your aunt and I would love to have dinner. Saturday at 6, bring that husband of yours. Family stuff to discuss." I stared at my phone for a long time. My husband Joel looked over from the kitchen counter and said, "Who is it?" I handed him the phone. He read it. Set it face down on the counter. Then he looked at me and said quietly, "What do you want to do?" That's the question, isn't it? What do I want to do? Let me back up. My father remarried when I was 9. My mom had passed 2 years before, a car accident on a wet highway outside Columbus, Ohio, on a Tuesday morning in March. I remember the day very clearly because my teacher pulled me out of class and I thought I was in trouble. I wasn't in trouble. I was just suddenly without a mother. My dad grieved in the way some men do, by moving forward very fast and never looking back. Within 18 months, he had met my Aunt Renee through a family barbecue. Yes, his late wife's younger sister. I know. I was too young then to understand why that felt wrong. I just knew it did. Renee moved in when I was 9. She had 2 kids from a previous relationship, a boy named Cole and a girl named Tess. They were loud and confident in the way kids are when they've never had to make themselves small. Cole broke things and laughed about it. Tess borrowed my clothes without asking and acted like I should be flattered. My father thought they were wonderful. I don't want to spend too much time on the childhood part because, honestly, I've done a lot of therapy and I know exactly what it was. It was a man who buried his grief by building a new family, and in doing so, slowly erased the one he already had. Me. The daughter who looked too much like her mother. The daughter who, I think, made him feel guilty just by existing. I don't say that to be dramatic. I say it because his behavior made a lot more sense once I understood it. I worked hard in school, not for him, for myself, and maybe a little for my mom, who used to quiz me on multiplication tables at the kitchen table and tell me I was going to do something great someday. I got into the University of Michigan on a partial scholarship. I worked 20 hours a week at a campus coffee shop and applied for every grant I could find. My dad contributed nothing to my tuition. He did, however, throw Cole a party when Cole got into a community college 2 hours from home. I remember calling him the week before graduation. I told him the ceremony was May 12th, 10 in the morning, at the stadium on campus. I told him I would leave 2 tickets at will call. He said, "Hazel, that's so far. You know how Renee's back has been." I said, "Okay." I said I understood. I hung up and sat on my dorm room floor for a while. Joel found me there. We'd been dating 8 months at that point. He sat down next to me on the floor without saying anything, and we just sat there together until I was ready to get up. Joel's parents drove 4 hours from Pittsburgh to watch me walk across that stage. My dad sent a text that said, "Congrats, kiddo. Proud of you." I did not respond. After graduation, I moved to Chicago. Joel had a job offer there, and I had exactly one plan. Figure out what I was good at and build something. I had majored in supply chain management, which sounds deeply unglamorous. And it is. But I had always been drawn to the logic of it. How things move where the inefficiencies hide. How a small fix in one place can change everything downstream. I got a job at a mid-sized logistics company on the north side. I was good at it immediately. Not because I was brilliant, I wasn't the smartest person in the room, but because I worked harder than almost anyone there and I genuinely loved the puzzle of it. Joel and I got married 2 years after I moved to Chicago. We had a small wedding, 40 people, a venue in Wicker Park, string lights, and wildflowers. It was exactly what I wanted. I invited my dad. Not because I expected him to come, exactly, but because he was still my dad, and some part of me still hoped. He called a week before the wedding and told me he couldn't make it. Renee's daughter Tess was having her engagement party that same weekend, and you know how these things are planned months in advance, Hazel. We can't just change it. I had also planned my wedding months in advance. I said, "Okay, Dad." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Not on the phone, anyway. Joel held me that night and didn't say anything bad about my father, which I appreciated, because I wasn't ready to say bad things either. I just felt the familiar weight of being the child who didn't quite matter enough. Joel's dad walked me down the aisle. My dad sent a card with a $50 Amazon gift card inside. Renee signed it too, which I thought was a particularly remarkable choice. Joel and I spent the first year of our marriage working constantly. He was climbing at his firm. I was starting to feel restless. The company I worked for was good, but I kept seeing the same problem everywhere. Small and mid-sized manufacturers getting crushed by inefficient freight contracts, paying 2 and 3 times what they should have been because they didn't have the leverage or the knowledge to negotiate better. I started doing some of this consulting on the side. A friend of a friend connected me to a furniture manufacturer in Naperville who was hemorrhaging money on shipping. I looked at their contracts for 2 weekends and saved them $340,000 in the first year. That was it. That was the moment. I quit my job in the spring, 4 years into my career, with 11 months of savings in our account and a business plan that Joel had read 4 times and still believed in. I named the company Bridgeline Logistics Solutions. I got my first 3 clients from word of mouth. By the end of year 1, I had 12 clients and 2 employees. By the end of year 3, I had brought on a COO, expanded to Denver and Atlanta, and was managing freight contracts for companies ranging from small family-owned manufacturers to regional grocery chains. It was not easy. I won't pretend otherwise. There were quarters where I didn't take a salary. There was a period when a major client dropped us suddenly, and I had to lay off 2 people, which was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Joel and I had hard conversations about risk and timing and whether we'd made the right choices. We got through it. The company kept growing. During all of this, my relationship with my dad was essentially non-existent. We exchanged texts on birthdays. He called once when he heard through a relative that Bridgeline was doing well and asked a few vague questions about how the business stuff was going. I gave vague answers. He didn't press. I think he didn't really know how to talk to me, and I had long since stopped trying to teach him. Joel and I bought a house in Lincoln Park. We had a daughter, Rosie, and she is the light of every single room she walks into. My dad has met her once at a family funeral 2 years ago when she was 18 months old. He held her for approximately 4 minutes and then handed her back. I try not to think about that too much. The Inc. magazine feature came out on a Thursday in September. The piece was titled "The Woman Quietly Fixing American Freight." I hadn't pitched it. A journalist had reached out after seeing a panel I did at a supply chain conference in Dallas. We spent 2 months on interviews and fact-checking. The article described Bridgeline as a company that had restructured freight contracts for over 200 American manufacturers, saving clients a collective $47 million in 4 years. It mentioned that we were on track to hit $30 million in annual revenue by end of year. It ran with a photo of me standing in front of our Chicago office, arms crossed, looking like someone who had absolutely not cried in the bathroom the morning of that photo shoot because she was so overwhelmed. My phone started ringing before I'd finished my morning coffee. Clients called. Friends called. My college roommate texted a voice message that was mostly just screaming. Joel left a single flower on my desk with a note that said, "I always knew." My COO sent a bottle of champagne to the office. My dad texted at 4:17 p.m. "Hey, your aunt and I would love to have dinner. Saturday at 6. Bring that husband of yours." Family stuff to discuss. No congratulations. No, I saw the article. No acknowledgement of what the article meant, what the company was, what it had taken me to build it. Just family stuff to discuss. On his timeline. At his convenience. Joel read it and set the phone down. "What do you want to do?" I thought about it for 3 days. I need to explain something about those 3 days. Because it wasn't simple. Part of me, The 9-year-old who set the table and cleared the dishes and waited to matter. Wanted to go. Wanted, even now, to walk into that house and have my father finally see me. See this. See what I'd built. There's a version of me that never stopped wanting his approval, and I'm not ashamed of that. I think it's just what happens when a parent withholds something for long enough. You spend years both not expecting it and never quite stopping to hope. But another part of me, the part that had gotten smarter, with age and therapy and Joel and a daughter of my own, understood something clearly. My father was not texting because he missed me. He was texting because he had seen the number. The $47 million, the revenue. He wanted to sit across from me at a dinner table and figure out what he could get. I talked to my therapist on Friday. She asked me what I was afraid of. I said I was afraid of going and getting hurt again. She said, "And if you don't go?" I said I was afraid I'd spend the rest of my life wondering if I'd made a mistake. She said, "Both of those fears are real. So the question is, if you do go, what would make you feel like yourself? What would make you leave that dinner feeling okay?" I thought about that for a long time. I called my dad Saturday morning. "I'll come," I told him. "But I want you to understand something first. I'm coming because I want to close a loop, not open one. I'm not interested in family stuff that involves my business or my money. If that's what dinner is, I'd rather skip it." There was a long pause. He said, "Hazel, it's just family dinner." I said, "Good. Then I'll see you at 6. Joel offered to come. I told him to stay home with Rosie. This was something I needed to do alone. I dressed carefully that evening. Not to impress anyone, I dressed carefully for myself. A dark blazer, simple jewelry, the earrings Joel had given me for our anniversary. I looked in the mirror and I thought, "You're not that girl anymore. You haven't been for a long time." I drove to my dad's house. The same house I'd grown up in, though Renee had redecorated it so completely that it barely looked familiar. There was a new wraparound porch. Wind chimes by the door. A welcome mat that said, "Gather." I stood on that porch for a moment and almost laughed. Renee opened the door. She was warm in the practice way she always was. Big smile, both hands. "Hazel, you look amazing. We're so proud." I smiled back. I said thank you. I followed her inside. My dad was at the head of the table. Cole and Tess were both there. Tess's fiancé, a quiet man named, I'm going to call him just the fiancé, because honestly, he barely spoke all evening and I don't think he knew what he walked into. Renee's sister. An uncle I barely recognized. It was a full table. My dad stood up when I walked in. He hugged me. He smelled the same. A particular soap. A little bit of coffee. I hugged him back because he was still my father, and some things are just complicated. We sat down. There was a pot roast. There was wine. For the first 45 minutes, it was almost normal. Tess talked about her wedding planning. Cole complained about his commutes. My dad asked Joel general questions through me. "How's Joel doing?" "Still at the same firm?" I answered. I ate. I waited. Then my dad cleared his throat. "So," he said, and I recognized the tone immediately. It was the voice he used when he wanted something and was trying not to sound like it. "We've been thinking, now that your company is doing so well. And Hazel, truly, we are so proud. That article was something. We've been thinking it might be a good time to talk about the family." I set down my fork. "Cole's been having a rough stretch," he continued. "His business. You know he's been trying to get that contracting thing off the ground. He could really use some investment, some mentorship, someone who knows how things work." Cole looked at the table. "And your grandfather's property," my dad added. "In Kentucky. We've been talking about what to do with it. And we thought maybe, given your experience, you might want to be involved, have some stake in it, contribute to getting it developed." There it was. Not, "I'm sorry I missed your graduation." Not, "I'm sorry I didn't come to your wedding." Not, "Hazel, I haven't been a good father and I know that. Just here's what we need from you, now that you are useful." I looked at him for a moment. Then I looked at Cole, who still wasn't meeting my eyes. Then I looked at Renee, who was watching me with a very careful expression, like she was waiting to see which way the weather would go. I picked up my fork. I took one more bite of the pot roast. Then I put my napkin on the table and I said very calmly, "Dad, I appreciate you saying that. I'm glad the article meant something to you, but I'm not going to invest in Cole's business, and I'm not going to contribute to the property development. That's not something I'm available for." He started to say something. "Hazel, just hear me out." "I heard you," I said. "I always heard you, even when you weren't saying much." I paused. "I came tonight because I wanted to see if there was something real here, if maybe enough time had passed that we could sit down and just be family. Actually be family. Not transactional family. Real family." My dad's jaw was tight. "I don't think we're there," I said. "And that's okay, but I'm not going to sit here and discuss my business assets with you. I built that company by myself. Joel and I built it. Nobody in this room helped us do that. And that's okay too. That's not a criticism. I'm just being honest about what's true." The table was very quiet. Renee's sister looked at her wine glass. "I hope you all have a good night," I said. I stood up. I said goodbye to my dad. I meant it, whatever it was worth. I told Tess I hoped her wedding was beautiful. I meant that too. I walked out to my car. I sat in the driver's seat for a minute. The wind chimes on the porch were moving in the evening air, just barely, making that soft, scattered sound. "Gather," said the welcome mat. I texted Joel. "On my way home. I'm okay." Actually, okay. He texted back a single emoji, a small white star. That was 18 months ago. My dad and I don't have a relationship right now. I won't say we never will, because I genuinely don't know. People change sometimes. He hasn't called since that night. I haven't either. I don't think that makes either of us bad people. I think it makes us two people who got to an honest place. Finally, even if it was a painful one. Bridgeland is doing well. We brought on a VP of business development in January and opened an office in Charlotte. Rosie is almost 3 and obsessed with dogs and thinks every bug she finds is her personal pet. Joel coaches her little weekend soccer league, 9 toddlers, total chaos, absolute joy. Joel's parents came to visit last month. His mom helped me replant the garden beds out back. We spent a Saturday afternoon in the dirt, and at one point, she just looked over at me and said, "I'm so glad you're our daughter." Just like that. So easy. I held it together until I got inside. I think about my mom sometimes. I think about how she used to quiz me on my times tables and tell me I was going to do something great. I wonder if she knew, if somehow she understood, in the way mothers do, that her daughter was going to have to build the table herself, and then learn to sit at the head of it. I think she would have loved Rosie. I think she would have been proud. And I really believe this. That would have been enough. That would have been more than enough. If you've ever been the child who was invisible until you became useful, I see you. I really do. And I want you to know what they gave you or didn't give you is not the measure of who you are. You get to decide that. You've been deciding it all along. If this story moved you, subscribe to Glacier Revenge, new stories every week, and drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? We love hearing from you. I've thought a lot about cause and effect since that dinner, not in a mystical way, just in the plain, honest way that life actually works. Every choice has a weight to it. Every absence, every time someone decides another person doesn't matter enough to show up, that decision doesn't disappear. It lands somewhere. It shapes something. And eventually the full picture becomes clear whether anyone wants to look at it or not. My father made his choices across 20-some years. He chose Renee's family over mine, quietly and consistently, in 100 small ways and a few enormous ones. He chose a party over my wedding. He chose a text over a phone call when I graduated. None of those choices were dramatic. None of them came with a speech or a confrontation. They were just absences, stacked one on top of another, until the shape of our relationship became unmistakable. I was not someone he prioritized. And the hard clarifying truth is that when the ink article ran, when I became visible in a way he couldn't ignore, his first instinct wasn't to say he was sorry. It was to figure out what he could get. That tells you everything you need to know about cause and effect. But here's what I want to say about the other side of it. My side. Because I think the part that actually matters isn't what he did. It's what I chose to do with it. I could have let that childhood make me bitter. I had every reason to. Instead, somewhere along the way, I made a decision. Not a dramatic one, not a single moment, but a slow and stubborn decision. To take what I'd been given, which was very little, and build something real from it. Bridgeling didn't come from privilege or connection or someone believing in me early. It came from paying attention, from caring about a problem nobody thought was interesting, from being willing to work on something quietly for years before anyone noticed. That's what I want people to take from my story. Not the drama of the dinner, not the satisfaction of walking out, but the years before any of that happened. The years of figuring out what I was good at and choosing to trust it. The years of Joel sitting beside me on the floor of a dorm room, not saying anything, just being there. The years of showing up to work when I was scared and doing the next right thing anyway. Rosie is almost 3 now. Someday she's going to face something that feels unfair, because that's just life. It will happen. And what I want her to understand is that how we respond to what's unfair is the whole thing. It's the whole ball game. You can spend your life waiting for someone to finally see your worth, or you can get up and make something worth seeing. Those are genuinely different paths, and only one of them leads somewhere good. I'm not angry at my father. I want to be honest about that. I'm not. What I feel is closer to a kind of sad clarity. He had a daughter who would have loved him thoroughly if he'd let her. He chose not to. That's the weight he carries now, not me. I set it down a long time ago, and I'm so glad I did.